Did someone ever tell you that if you play violent video games, you become a violent person? If you play video games, or you know someone who does, the answer is probably yes. The idea that violent video games will make you become violent isn't new. In fact, it started in the early 80s, and since then, both sides have been arguing to no conclusion. The people who believe in this state that if you play violent video games, the constant exposure to violence will make you become more violent. This makes a lot of sense because the correlation between the exposure to violence in real life and violent behavior was scientifically proven to exist. My objective for this video is to show you that this theory is wrong. I have researched arguments on both sides, and I have found what I believe to be solid evidence against the idea that playing violent video games will make you become a violent person. Between the people who believe that playing violent video games will make you become a violent person, there are two groups. One group believes that violent video games will only make you become a violent person, and the other believes that if you play violent video games, you can become a psychopath. They believe in this because there are many psychopaths who played violent video games and went rampaging, killing hundreds of people. Some of them played their favorite game for hours before going to the rampage. One could say that after they saw so much violence, they decided it would be nice to do this in real life. As a starter for this video, let's show why you can't become a psychopath by playing violent video games. Our story starts in 2005, when a neuroscientist named James Fallon made a huge breakthrough on the understanding of what causes psychopathy. He and his researchers had done fMRIs of the brains from 80 different prisoners, while the prisoners were shown videos of people being harmed and in pain. Some of the prisoners were psychopaths. The fMRIs showed that the brains from the psychopaths reacted in a totally different way compared to the other prisoners. The brains from the psychopaths had extremely low levels of activities in multiple areas. Some of them were responsible for thinking about the consequences of one's actions and for feeling empathy. You can't become a psychopath only by playing violent video games. You need to be born with a certain set of genes that only 1% of the world population possesses. And even if you do, you also need to be exposed to violence at a very young age to become a psychopath. And when I say they need to be exposed to violence in a very young age, I don't mean violent video games kind of violence. I mean heavy violence, like beatings, rape, and torture. Even James Fallon said, and I quote, "You really need to see violence or be involved in it in 3D. Okay, you might think, you have proved that you can't become a psychopath by playing violent video games, but what about just becoming a violent person? That's what I'm gonna do right now, but first I need to give you a friendly reminder. There are lots of research and data supporting the idea that violent video games can't make you a psychopath, but I can say the same thing for this part of the video. Even though there are lots of psychological effects and reasons that show why playing violent video games will not make you a violent person, they're not specific to video games. So the best I can do is connect the psychological reasons that probably take place in one's mind when they play violent video game. First of all, I would like to talk why we don't act violently all the time. There are many reasons for someone not to act violently, but I would like to focus on some of the main ones: empathy, rules, and danger. When you feel angry to the point where you want to act aggressively, your brain will think about the consequences of one's actions. Your brain would think about the empathy you feel for an individual that you would be violent to. As feeling empathy will make you feel pain, therefore you will get hurt if you act aggressively. Your brain will also think about the rules of society you live in. For example, if in the society you live in, beating up people is against the rules and will lead to prison, you will also get harmed acting aggressively. At last, when you act aggressively towards a person, there is a big chance that the person will fight back, therefore you will also be in danger of getting hurt. So your brain might decide that acting aggressively is not worth it. And here comes the main point. None of these reasons exist in violent video games. So that's why people are okay with doing violent things in video games. This explains why our brain doesn't relate violence in video games with violence in real life. Even though you can do horrible things in video games, if you stop to think about it, they aren't bad at all, as no one is getting harmed by it. I can even show you that your brain thinks like that with one simple question. Imagine that there are 5 people tied to a train track. The train is coming in their direction. You don't have a way to untie them. You only can save them if you do one of 2 options. And the first option is to shoot someone in a video game. Know that you won't miss a shot if you try. The other option is to slap someone who is beside you right in the face. If you do any of these options, it is certain that the train track will stop and the 5 people will be saved. Which one would you choose? If you were a normal person, you would choose to shoot a person in a video game. This shows that your brain considers shooting a person in a video game a smaller act of aggression than slapping a person in the face. So when you shoot someone in a video game, your brain isn't even influenced by the violence because he doesn't see it as a violent action.